Awesome.
But oh my gosh, okay. I love asking this silly question. What'd you have for breakfast today?
I actually had, so we're going backpacking this weekend down to southern Utah in the Coyote.
No way. Oh my gosh.
Super excited. I guess it's got a lot of amazing water and it's like the whole red rock overhang. Anyway, long story for answering what I had for breakfast. We're gonna make hobo dinners to have in the cooler for when we come out of Coyote Gulch to make that one night that we're car camping. So we had leftover potatoes, which then we put spinach and onions um,
Ooh,
and salsa on. So really earthy, grounded breakfast this morning, which was perfect.
wow. That's an unusual breakfast.
Yeah, I
I was
find.
expecting you to say Fruit Loops.
Oh, oh, sure.
Kidding.
I did have Lucky Charms the other night though for a nice little treat. So
Oh,
there's
did
a time.
you? Awesome. You're amazing. I love it. I don't know how to get rid of these silly comments so I can see your cute, gorgeous face, but it just keeps having things across your face. So,
Oh,
oh well,
yeah,
that's weird.
yeah.
So, tell me, what is subtle energy to you?
I've been thinking about this a lot since I asked you last weekend, like, what do you want to talk about? Like, you have an idea, and you brought up this idea of subtle energy. And to me, everything is energy. There's nothing that's
Mhm.
not in. And
Agreed.
it's in all of the spectrum of density to the highest vibration. Dense energy we can interact with every day. Our bodies, our clothes, our furniture, the ground, our houses. That's like dense energy. Subtle energy,
Hmm.
that more high frequency. You can feel it, but it's not necessarily visible or tactile until you start to learn how to work with it, right? So emotions, and for those who are familiar with being empathic, like what you're picking up on somatically in your body, but you're not quite sure, like, what is this? You walk into a room and you feel something, but it hits you before your senses catch up to the sense of it. I think that's subtle energy. Right? What
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think it's basically, yeah, subtle energy are things that aren't tangible in our world. Thoughts. Thoughts are subtle energies. Yeah, like you said, emotions. But I think everything that is tangible, at least nature wise, I mean, even, material things like our clothes and our home, but just not as much, put off a subtle energy from
yeah,
them as well. And
yep,
so, and I think that it even goes beyond that to the point where we're receiving subtle energy from the sun, from the moon, from stars, from other planets, from other high dimensional existences, should we just say, to make it
yeah,
digestible by our audience. But it's, and I get the chills when I say that because it actually, it just cracks open my perception of my world. It's just like, wow. I guess we try to minimalize things to make it, copable and manageable from day to day, but really, subtle energy is not even on this planet; it's beyond this planet. So,
yeah, yeah. It's fascinating. I've dove into a shamanic practitioner, moving through the medicine mill. It's a pretty
love it.
tradition from the Andes, and learning, I'm learning through this experience that everything, like you said, everything has subtle energy. We have a physical dense body, we have an emotional body, we have our body, and then our energetic matrix. And like you said, everything has a subtle energy. You can see it. Like if you kind of soften your eyes and look at the trees, like that little glow that you see around the tree or a person or whatever. To me, that's that energetic body that's being projected out. So, do you feel like
Yes.
that subtle energy is different than the aura field? Like, do you feel like, or do you feel like that's the auric field is a different, like just one expression of subtle energy?
I think definitely the aura is um, basically, in my understanding, the aura is that energetic space that surrounds something in this 3D world, something of matter and material that does hold subtle energy within that. But I think the subtle energy can go way beyond the aura as well, can be, expressed. I think that within the aura, there's several other things. There's, in a sense, your chords, your connections to your Akashic records. People maybe have not heard of the Akashic records, which I think is interesting. I'm hoping this wind isn't affecting my sound.
I
Okay,
can,
that's why I put headphones in.
yeah.
But I'm like, I have to be outside.
Oh,
Ooh. Anyway, just because there's so much prana out here. But in Sanskrit, space is called akasha.
mm,
So, Akashic records are in space. So I think we have connections to that. And of course, if people aren't aware of what Akashic records are, it's basically records of information about you that ever since you've always existed, including in the future, just everything. Your
yeah.
choices, your thought patterns. So it holds subtle energy in it. And so, but I think the aura, yeah, just has several different things. I think that it also has, pain bodies. It has your shadow. It has, yeah, all those types of things. How about you? Would you agree with that, or do you have a different take?
Yeah, I think it's something I'm still learning about, so I'm curious with. I would
Agreed.
say
Me too.
the auric field is a type of subtle energy because, like in the shamanic world, we learn how to expand out our energetic bubble that our subtle energy, how to expand it out and get really,
Mm,
or if you do pull it in and get really protective with it. And that's like for someone who's super empathic and feels everything, and it can be quite overwhelming going into a crowded place or people that are on high stress
sorry,
level.
not you. My kids,
Oh,
my grandkids. Like, don't come out here. Okay, keep going. So you can
learn,
expand it or contract it, and that's usually based on trauma or
just
like
learning how
you contract it.
subtle energy.
Okay. Okay.
Like you feel everything, and it's hard to know what's yours and what someone else going to take on other energetic expression
Yeah.
and put that protective layer and pull your subtle energy in and put like a boundary up so you're not so porous and open to feeling everything. Like if you have
Right.
Costco, or to me Home Depot is that like it's so draining.
Oh, Walmart's worse.
Yeah,
At least
so it's
people at Home Depot are there to improve something.
like,
But
good point.
yeah,
I don't
I
know,
get you.
but like learning how to work with your own subtle energy is super helpful. Or if you're going into a place where trauma can be triggered, you can get into your pain body. Having a healthy way of protecting your field so you're not absorbing stuff and getting triggered into a place that you can't function the rest of the day. So I think that's super
Right.
fun.
Yeah, I think for sure. So if someone is not, I mean, they're aware, most everybody's aware of their thoughts and their emotions, but they may not be aware that that's a subtle energy that we can protect, like you said, or expand or clear or all those things. So for someone that's really just not super aware with that term subtle energy, why do you think awareness of that could help them?
I think it's really because my belief system is taking that we are the ultimate creators of our life, and the energy that we hold, it's a frequency, and we put these vibrations out in the world, and the world shows up in response to it. So to me, that's a very empowered way of living, knowing that if things are showing up in my world that don't feel good, where can I shift in myself to have a different experience? So learning how to work with that our thoughts are creative, our emotions are creative, how we attune in the day with our thoughts and with it leads to action, what's showing up, then we can be more conscious around it rather than unconsciously feeling a victim in life that I had the worst day today, and this happened, and I can't do anything about it. For me, it feels better to go, oh, what in me needs to shift? So I'm putting out a different frequency, a different vibration. So life starts showing up way for me. And that's super powerful. That's
Yeah.
sovereign, and that's important that I have an ability to shift my whole world just based on what I'm holding within me. So
Yeah. I mean, and that's huge. That's
yeah.
huge. And I know that that's, you know, we can, how could we apply that to like one scenario that could be really helpful for people? Because I think that what's been interesting is with the shifts in our world in the last 14 months, um, that's really been the determining factor as to whether you have thrived the last 14 months or you have suffered the last 14 months has been how well have you been able to exercise and practice your ability to stay in a high vibration with your subtle energy. So your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts about things that are a high vibration instead of the gloom and doom or the fear or the victimization or all of that. So like what one practical example could we give? Do you have one you could think off the top of your head?
Well, first thing I say is where are you spending your time, energy? Like what are you allowing into your field? Because that will affect you. And I
Yeah.
haven't been on social media for a year because I got sucked in polarization that was happening out there.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Media felt like I had to validate how I felt, and I had to, convince everyone I was right. And then I was like, what? Like, that's not my job. My job is be clear in what's important to me and then live in alignment with that. And I don't want to be in this turmoil. So staying in a
Yeah.
situation always pulling me into fear or panic, or that pulls me out of sovereignty, that pulls me out of a really grounded place. And I'm not going to operate well if that's where I'm living. Right. So for me, it was a conscious choice of this isn't serving me, so I'm going to disconnect from this, and I put my
Mm-hmm.
more in grounded where I feel I like being where I and that's the
Yeah.
I'm
You kind
resource.
of cut out. You kind of cut out off and on. I don't know if it's me. All right, can you guys hear Tandy or Christy or Marshall? Those of you are there, can you hear her, or is it just me? Somebody type in that's listening. I don't know. Every once in a while, there's like a little, and I don't know if it's me or you.
Yeah, I don't either. It's yeah, my phone's been wonky. I don't know.
It's she says it's hard to hear Valerie. I don't know if you've got any headphones to plug in to finish. I wonder if that gives like a more connect
Okay,
vocal and stuff. It
go grab.
sounds windy. Oh, that's me. Okay, it sounds windy. Okay, windy on Julie's end. I have to go inside, but my grandkids are in there, so that'll be interesting.
I'm gonna grab headphones.
Okay, I don't think it's you though. I think it's me. Um, I'll have to just slip through. I might get some grandkids screaming on me.
Well, that's life, right? That's fun.
How are you guys? How's the twins?
Aw.
Okay, that's probably better. Just go up to my yoga room.
Okay.
Oh man,
Okay. I put my
that's
headphones in,
better.
but they're only 17% charged, so.
Yeah. Well, you'll be fine, I'm sure. So, Here I
Okay.
am
Can
in
you?
my yoga space. Yay!
Oh, yay. Can you hear
I
me
love it
better?
so much. Yeah, I think it was
Okay.
mostly me that was interrupting everything. So we're good now. I can actually be hands-free here.
Yay. Perfect.
So anyway, where were we? A
So I was
practical
talking,
application or
yeah, I was talking about just making
social media?
choices in where you can feel in alignment with high vibration. You know, how you can resource yourself every day. What are you pulling into your world? Is it pulling you into being confident and sovereign, or is it pulling you into fear and really second guessing yourself? Like, that's some really practical ways of supporting yourself in being a high vibe place. For me, it was
Yeah.
getting off social media, spending more
Yeah.
time in nature,
Oh,
focusing on what I
absolutely.
want. Yeah, focusing on what I want out of life and putting my energy towards making that happen rather than getting caught up in the stories of what could happen or where this might go or all of that. Like, I couldn't really tell you what's going on in the world because I really retreated into my own world, you know? So,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
for me, that was fine. Like, I don't, yeah, yeah. So,
Absolutely. I hear you. Definitely nature for me. Um, Social media, I pretty much, I can tell when it's starting to bother me and I'll pull out from it. I actually just hired somebody to handle it mostly for me, so I'm not doing it. But that's why I kind of wanted to do this live. I wanted to start bringing, at least from my small micro community world circle of influence, some positive information, some helpful information, some ideas that can help and shift us. Uh, but I've also noticed that social media has been really healthy for me to practice really being in my sovereign space. I kind of needed something to challenge that in order for me to
mm,
stay in that sovereign space. But there's limits. I have limits, and I know when those limits are starting to get there, and then I bow out. So it was interesting. I was listening to something the other day. I think it was actually just last night. And she was talking about how when you have a thought about something specific, that energy from that thought literally goes out from your body 360 degrees
mm,
and around you, which is, for me, I believe it's outside of the auric field. There is this basically hologram that you create, or that feeling and existence that goes with that thought. You are in at that moment. You have that thought.
mm-hmm,
And if
mm-hmm,
that type of thought, whether positive or negative, not that I want to say higher or lower, it just is. And basically, that just means it's a lower Hertz frequency. If you continue on that same Hertz frequency, then you are determining your future based on that frequency that you remain in. And the same thing if you're in a more positive. But she did say that ultimately, because the earth is doing some shifting itself,
mm-hmm.
that even if we're staying at a lower vibration, we are going to be basically, it's just going to be, we're either going to be self-sabotaged or we are going to be asked and asked multiple times, lots and several choices to choose otherwise, to
Mm-hmm.
join the
Yeah,
rest of the evolution that's happening. So to
yeah,
me, subtle energy is awesome because it does help us with, understanding that we are not a victim. It's all based on our thoughts, and it's
mm-hmm,
all based on our thoughts about that thought or that person or that circumstance or that action or behavior. And
mm-hmm,
so it really is just determinant on us, that which is empowering for two reasons. One, because I can determine my future based on that. But
mm-hmm,
two, I can change my relationship in the now with
mm-hmm,
everything and everyone around me.
mm-hmm.
So I think it goes both ways. So any thoughts on that? Is that anything that you've been aware of?
Yeah, it's kind of like what I said, where everything is energy, and we tune ourselves into a frequency, and our thoughts are that tuning in, right? That our thoughts create an energetic field, which then puts out this frequency, which then attracts that like frequency, because like attracts like, it just does.
Yeah.
And so that's where life is going to flow. And then if you put something pretty that has more, like emotions have more of a charge, because it's a thought tied to this feeling in the body, that's going to even, so if you have a thought and you have a strong emotion with it, this is basic law of attraction 101, it's going to have even more gravity, if you will, to pull that to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that, that's so powerful, because you can realize I can control, or I can be more conscious in my thought process. So that helps me to then shift how I'm feeling about it. Like if I feel empowered, I'm going to be putting more positive, and positive just meaning higher frequency energy behind it, which is going to pull it to me. So that kind of controlling the future, that's, to me, that's creative. Like I believe we're completely creative in our lives. And there's things that come that we have no control over, but it's, are we going to react to that from a triggered, wounded, pain body place, which we may, or can we do the work, the healing work, to take the time to take the breath, to be conscious in responding rather than reacting to it? And that's creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Amazing, for sure.
Yeah.
I do feel as if, though, if the particular choices that we make as far as responses to things, it does start to shift based on our ability to heal from a wound.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that those things that happen in our life that we can't control, that we don't like,
Mm-hmm.
is there in order to trigger us to see if we've healed from a wound.
Absolutely.
And I feel like once we've healed the wound to a certain degree and we're really ready to move on, those types of things don't actually enter into your life anymore, as far as, you know, things that you don't like. Well, you end up actually liking everything. You're like, sweet.
Right. And you're more, or even more neutral about it. Like, oh, okay, there it is. And the strong emotion isn't tied to it. And you can be more centered and grounded in working through that density, because density is part of our world. I don't think we can ever get away from density, but and when I mean density, I mean those hard emotions, those hard situations, but we are better able to navigate it with more consciousness, and we don't get so stuck in it for so long. You know, it may affect us, but we can shift quicker into, okay, this happened, now what's my choice, what I'm going to do, rather than being stuck in victim of, I can't do anything, you know, it's like life is ending, whatever. So
right. So does your shamanic training talk about shifting energy for people, similar to Reiki and all of that, which actually in India they call it pranic healing? At least while I was in India, that's what they called it. Even though they had some schools down there that said Reiki, and that was a word to appease us Westerners. That's not the word they use. They use pranic healing. But is there a form of that in shamanic healing, or is it more just guiding them through, you know, their injuries, their sufferings?
well, for sure, we work with the
come to
energetic
healing.
bodies. We work with the energetic bodies of the chakras, and that is an Eastern tradition that I believe has been brought into the shamanic practice. In this specific line, they're called energy belts, and there's 5 in the body, and they're elemental. So there's one around the pelvis that's water, that is the element. And the center of that energetic belt is called a nawi, which the nawi is a place where we can take the density and we can send it down to Mother Earth, to Gaia, to be mulched and to be transformed into useful energy. So we don't have to hold it in our bodies. So there's a belt around the pelvis, that's the water element, and then one around the midsection, that's the earth element, and then one up around the heart section, that's the fire, and then around the throat, it's air, and then up here, it's the ethers. So it's the Andean people, they just see energy in terms of dense or light, and how is it serving you? And if it's creating a negative, and I put it in quotes, like it's not in service to you, you can shift the density of it by sending it to Earth, Gaia, letting it get mulched and mequed into fertile, higher vibration energy that you can pull in from both the earth and the cosmos. So that is a practice. I've only gone it through one direction. There's 4 directions in the medicine wheel. And you actually came in for a session working with clearing the chakra system. So the chakra
So
system
awesome.
is where we have these energy centers in our bodies, and we pick up density just in our experience of life, through relationship, through even being in Home Depot, if you will, like places that carry a lot of density. They get into our chakras and it can create a disruption. So that's another thing we can do, is to help clear and cleanse that energetic system of old trauma, things we're holding on a soul level, things we're holding on an interdimensional level, things that we're holding on a physical level, ancestral level. Like, it's multidimensional in its approach, which is why I love it, because we're not just physical beings. So it's far reaching in how it can shift energy. So we start cleaning up karmic lines, or we start cleaning up possible outcomes, because we're in a different alignment. We have a different engagement in life because we're consciously shifting energy that we're holding in our bodies. So it's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. And in fact, from the kind of functional medicine or alternative care world, at least from what kinesiologists do, which I did a small course of this weekend, it's not necessarily called subtle energy, it's called refined energy. And refined energy can be several different things, and it can encompass some things that people don't like to talk about and have not really addressed. And it can be hexes, curses, things from energy dense, lower vibrational energy density beings that are around you. So it doesn't even just have to be us and the people or Home Depot. It could be there's this whole other world around us. And that's why I think it's important for us to be aware of subtle energy, is that sometimes we're forgetful, or we're not willing to accept the fact that if it's not material, it doesn't exist, as far as, an influence or a being. And I mean, technically, they say if you've got any metal in your mouth, you are a walking battery. And people that have gotten this, experimental jab, you can stick magnets to it.
Wow.
You're like, what?
Wow.
But
that's weird.
There's so many things on even that technological realm that are just getting so small. They call it, nanotechnology, or different things that can affect us. But that's on one realm. But then there's just an existence around us that's that is influential. So of course, me being an empath, me being intuitive, have a few other, I'm clairsentient for sure. I can feel things all the time in my body. I sometimes feel a pain in my body before I know of anything thought or emotion wise. But, I wanted to build a yoga around to support those that are aware of that, so that they can work this muscle. And it starts off by being aware of it in all of its forms, in all of its ways. And it's not a walk in the park. It's not a walk through the daisy field. It's challenging. Right. And yet I feel it's super needed and empowering right now. So I think what you're doing is amazing. I have considered it, but there's so many directions to go. So many beautiful directions to go for people. What other things do you think, modalities or directions are out there to help people with subtle energy awareness? Would you recommend?
Well, one thing I wanted to speak to is it's important to know that things have to have, like, you have to hold an affinity for something for it to affect you, right? So two people could go into Home Depot and one could be completely fine and high vibe and the other one could be picking up all the stuff. So what's the difference? Well, somewhere in you, conscious or unconscious, there's an affinity for that energy to affect you. And
100%.
so healing, that's where the healing work comes in, and awareness of what is it that I'm holding that is, and you spoke to this, it gets triggered, so then we can become conscious of it, so then we can start to shift it, right? So the world is full of a full spectrum of energy out there, and from very, very low vibration to high vibration. And just because we're surrounded by it doesn't mean we're going to experience it. But if we do experience it, it's an opportunity to say, why is this affecting me? Why does it put me in fear? Why does it pull it out of my sovereignty? Why does it put me in a headspin? Why does it evoke these emotions? What is it that it's attaching to in me? Even in the shamanic world, they talk about clearing entities, which are outside energies that are connected to your energetic field. And the only way they can do that is if there's an opening, like
Yep.
it's got to be
Yep.
a match.
Permission. Somewhere there was permission.
Conscious or unconscious, right? Most
Right.
likely unconscious.
Right.
So working with that, being conscious and aware when things start feeling out of sync or really hard to navigate, you can have your personal practices of clearing and cleansing and finding your own attunement with whatever your source is and earth energy. And if that's just not working, then being open to finding, just even putting that intention out, I need something to help me with this. That's a thought. Putting some energy of emotion behind it, trusting that it will show up in your field, and every time it'll show up. Like someone will say, hey, I just saw this amazing healer. They did this, this, and this, and you'll feel your whole body go, oh, that's what I need. And you've actually created that response to you. You've pulled it to you. So I just think we don't understand, or we're starting to understand how powerful we are in what we can create for ourselves, rather than life needing to be hard, or someone else needs to tell us how we should do things, or how, like, whatever, like really understanding we're these transmitter stations, and like I am struggling with this, I need help. And that can be prayer, that can just be a spoken word, that can just be an intention, but putting it out there and trusting that it'll come to you. And there's so many things, there are so many things. And my belief as a healer, if you will, a practitioner of helping people heal, those who are meant to work with me find me, and when they don't need me, they'll find someone else. And I love to empower people in their own process. Like, this is what you can do. I'm just here to help you get through this rough part. And then these are the things that you can do. Get to yoga, learn your body, figure out what's going on, that kind of thing. So we can be empowered in our lives. Because we don't want to feel like we're dependent on a guru or a healer to heal us or teach us. Like, we're so powerful in what we can call in and experience and create in life.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So, I mean, I'm glad you spoke to that, because that's something that I feel is really important. I know I followed a few subtle energy groups. Some of them were HSP, highly sensitive person, or, some intuitive Facebook groups. And I didn't enjoy them because they just complained about this narcissist and that narcissist. And I'm like, do you not understand that if you're being an empath and picking up energy, it's because you need to heal something in you. You have that same resonance in you somewhere at some small particle. And that's where it starts. And that's where exercising your empathic ability starts, is with yourself, and healing all of that within yourself. And then you can expand outward to, assist and help others. Christy has a question. She says, how do you improve trusting? For me, I'm going to speak to that, because I'm in that mode right now of learning to trust myself. And that comes from being willing to make mistakes. And you just have to, for me, I just have to just stay within my own world just with me from a day to day, not where it necessarily is going to affect things outside of me in a huge way, but start with yourself and just say, okay, this is what I'm feeling about what I should be doing today, or where I should go, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, what I should eat for breakfast, and just go with that. Let
Mm-hmm.
yourself just take a day and be open to what you feel and what you sense, about your actions, your thoughts, your deeds, and just follow them and see what happens. Let me tell you, for the most part, you're going to blow yourself away and you're going to say, that was such an amazing day.
Totally.
Because when it comes to the subtle energy, we talked a little bit about, negative energy. And before I have you answer this, then we'll finish up. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your timing is. But not only do we have those, foreign energies outside of us affecting us on a negative, we have that same thing on the positive realm. You have your specific guides for you. They're higher
Mm-hmm.
parts of you, most of them. But they can be, other things, it can be ascended masters, it can be archangels, it can be, just relatives that have passed on. But you have that, and they can affect you subtle energy wise. So if you are aware of subtle energy, you can exercise it and elevate it, then you can get assistance from even that side. Just little nudges. It's not that they're telling you what to do, you get to choose. It's just little nudges here and there. So tell me
Mm-hmm.
if you have any experience on that, or what you suggest for trusting yourself.
Well, that's a huge one, because if you've experienced some deep betrayal or abuse where trust has been obliterated, it's hard. It's hard
Mm.
to trust life, if you've been a victim of something, right? And learning to trust yourself, I feel, is where it starts. Learning that you can trust your choices, you can trust your alignment, you can trust your frequency, you can trust what you're calling in, and you can trust your ability to get out when something starts feeling off rather than ignoring it. You can trust yourself to be your own person, your own advocate, you know what I mean, rather than putting your power outside of you. So it's not shamanic in nature, but we talk about it in shamanism, and it's in, I don't know, the psychoanalysis world, but the disempowerment triangle, which you have your perpetrator, your victim, and your rescuer. And
Mm-hmm.
in relationships, when we're not in a place of sovereignty, we shift these roles in our lives with different people. We become victim in this relationship, we become bully in this relationship, and then we become rescuers here, or in the same relationship we'll keep shifting, and it creates this power paradigm. And as long as we're living in one of those things, there's not a lot of trust there, right? There's not trust in ourselves, there's not trust in the other person. But when we can step into our own center, our own groundedness, our own ability to be sovereign, and I don't need to be a victim here because I'm empowered, I can step out of this, or I don't need to help, like, rescue someone, I can be there as a helpful thing, but ultimately it's their choice, like I don't need to live their life for them. Then we can start shifting into trust, and as we shift into trust, we start putting a different vibration out, which then brings reasons why we can trust life, versus holding everything at an arm's length because we don't trust life. We're going to just keep pulling more of that in because that's the vibration we're putting out. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Yeah.
absolutely. 100%, thousands percent. Yeah.
So,
So yeah, trust is challenging. I
yeah.
totally get that. It's challenging with self. It's challenging with others. But it's worth practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone said that to me first because I had the same question because I had had some deep betrayal, and how do I trust? And it was like, you won't until you trust yourself. Once you can trust your own ability to make aligned choices and get out of things that don't feel good, you're not going to be able to trust anyone else. And I think that's true for everything in life. Everything starts with ourselves. We can't have it in relationship to someone else if we're not practicing it with ourselves first. It's that affinity thing,
So
right?
true.
yeah, you've got to hold it within yourself to experience it in relationship to anything else. So if you don't trust yourself, you're not ever going to be able to trust someone else. And that might be like interesting to sit with, like, is that true? And maybe it's not true for you. That's just what I've found in my experience. Usually it's something I'm questioning about myself, and then I'm projecting it out, and then it's answering me in response. So yeah.
Yeah, so true. Wow.
Yeah,
That was
fun
fun.
conversation, as always. It's always fun.
This time, I wasn't on your table getting massaged at the same time.
Right? I know.
You could
This is
just
awesome.
focus on talking to me. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I adore you, and you're so gifted. And of course, I'm going to save this and put it on my Instagram, the Lifted Life Yoga. We're working on that. I'll put it on my YouTube. I'll put your bio on there so people can connect with you if they
Perfect.
want some shamanic energy work, some past life healing, whatever, or massage or cranial sacral or private yoga set. I mean, what is it you don't do? I didn't get that list. I only got the list of everything you do.
I don't jump off buildings or mountains or fly. That's Marcia's
Oh, you
department.
don't? Man, I'm working on that one. That's my, I'm working on telepathy. Actually,
Awesome.
I had a couple of different interesting, three actually, circumstances in my family where some mental challenges went on, and yet we felt like for all of us, we had heightened telepathy and able to communicate. Like my mom was one of them. I took care of her for 2 months. Her memory's going. She had a stroke. She was slurring her words, couldn't figure out her words. And I could intuitively or, telepathically know what she was trying to say. And I'd say, and she's like, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm like, okay, let's practice this some more.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But anyway, yeah, you're amazing. I really look up to you, and you know that. It's no new news. No new news. But I am looking forward to doing more of these. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, you're welcome. And have a beautiful day and
thank you.
A beautiful weekend. It sounds amazing. I'm going down there too to do some hiking. So
awesome. Well,
all
maybe
right.
we'll see ya.
Maybe. Okay. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you too. Bye.